Playhouse Lounge. Stop. Stop. It's not starring Jack Palance. Although we do have a movie where we do one of these with Jack Palance. Hello there. CriterioNate here. Live and in full effect for the first time ever as an experiment related to today's review. Number 495, The Golden Age of Television. 1953 to 58, 485 minutes, black and white, mineral 1.33, blah, 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 blah. So, I don't know if this is going to work or not. We may have to redo this through my old, through the camera and do it. But I just thought I'd try doing a review that was completely live. I mean, most of my reviews are live. I don't like to edit anything out, mostly because of laziness, but just because in the spirit of these teleplays that were completely live, I decided to try out the YouTube live thing. I'm doing this in the middle of the night. It's like 2:30 a.m. as I film this, and so I don't expect anyone else to be watching this, which is fine with me because nobody else watches the reviews, otherwise. So yeah, let's get talking because we've got a lot to get through. I love this set. I absolutely love this set. This was absolutely amazing. I've been looking forward to this since I got into Criterion, and I am so happy that it exceeded my expectations. The set completely did. And yeah, I'm buying this one. I ordered it actually from Barnes & Noble today. I ordered a copy, and so I'm probably going to be picking it up next week. And yeah, so anyway, let's get talking about it. Again, this is a collection of 8 teleplays that were shown on Playhouse TV's anthology series back in the mid-50s, back when live television was the thing. You couldn't make mistakes. If you made mistakes, you had to fix it on the spot. So, and timing was tight back then because you had to have enough time for the commercials and whatnot. And that was the only time you got to breathe, was when those commercials hit, because otherwise you were on it, and directors would be holding their breath, and they got a lot of developed back problems from sitting on the edge of their seat trying to make these shows work. And so, that's the gist I got from these from the interviews that are included. Now, so these are 8. So anyway, these are 8 plays. They were edited from a television series that was shown in the early 80s called The Golden Age of Television. And because of that, they were shown on, I think, like a PBS channel. I think it was KCET. I think that's Los Angeles, I think. So all the commercials are edited out, sadly. I don't even know if Criterion would have paid for, would have been able to found edits of them with the commercials intact. I have no clue if they even tried to find it. I'm sure they did this because it was, less expensive, and with the, with the introductions and the, interviews built in, there were your supplements, So anyway, let's get to start talking about these movies because, again, we've got a lot to get through. I'm not going to, talk about the plots of all of them. However, some of them I may go into more detail than the others. But again, all of these were amazing plays in their own right. So yeah, let's get to it. The first one, let's start with disc 1. Let me get the break. So yeah, so these are all, they were all sent to me, and each disc had a separate thing. So let me break out the booklet to review. Let's start with disc 1. That's disc 2. Where's disc 1? Disc 1. Now we're going to see live television videos. Disc 1, first one, Marty. Aired on May 24th, 1953. It was 52 minutes, and it was directed by, what's his name? Delbert Mann, starring Rod Steiger in the lead role as Marty. And this was a really, really fantastic story to start off with. It's about this guy named Marty who's 36. He lives at home with his mother, and I guess his siblings are often married, and his mother keeps complaining about how he doesn't get married, and he wants to get married, but his friends keep holding him back, and his friends are like eternal bachelors and all that. And so one night he goes to one of those public dances, and he meets this girl that he really likes, and she likes him. However, his friends want him to, forget about her. His mother kind of doesn't like her after he brings her home, and they have a bit of an argument. And so, Marty has to finally stand up for himself at the end and finally tells his friends off and says, "No, I like her. I'm gonna call her again." So yeah, it's a great, great story. Kind of struck a bit of a chord with me. I've been very unsuccessful in my love life, and so I think a lot of Marty's words resonated with me. So there you are. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought the dramatics were fantastic. It did come off as a bit nervous, a nervous broadcast, but it was early. They still need to figure it all out. So yeah, Marty gets an A from me. I'm going to rank all of these separately, but I'll rank the set as a whole in the end. And by the way, I'm just going to go ahead and announce it. All of these get an A from me. All of them do. Well, one gets an A minus, and that's a win from the South, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to go in order. But yes, Marty, a great story. It was written by Patty Chayefsky, and yes, a great, great story to kick off with, one that I definitely had a personal interest in. So, good stuff. Second play, Patterns, which first aired on January 12th, 1955, runs for 53 minutes. It's directed by Theodore Cook and written by the great Rod Serling. It was one of his first first screenplays, and one that kind of really took him into the front mind of most of America. It's about this company and this guy, Fred Staples, played by Richard Kiley, who works for Ramsey and Company. Mr. Ramsey, played by Everett Sloane, is this very ruthless kind of blowhard who wants to be the best of his company. And Kiley is this upcoming guy, and Mr. Ramsey is consistently belittling this older older worker named Andy Sloan, played by Ed Begley, and he has been with the company for years, and it isn't revealed until later that Staples was hired to replace Andy Sloan, even though he has developed a good rapport with him, and Staples doesn't want to replace him. He wants them both to stay, and it gets to the point where toward the end, he forces Mr. Ramsey forces Andy to apologize for putting his name on Mr. Staples' work, even though the two of them worked on it together. I think it was a little hard to follow in places, but I was just and to the point where Sloan is belittled to the point where he ends up having a heart attack and fainting. And at that point, Staples knows he needs to stand up to Ramsey, and I won't tell you the ending, but it's good it's pretty amazing Rod Serling stuff. I'm a huge fan of Serling. I've watched all of the Twilight Zone episodes. I'm currently working on the last season of Night Gallery, and his work is very thought-provoking and sometimes controversial, but he made you think, A lot of great stories, a lot of great plays, and not the last we'll see of him. He'll be coming back a little later. So yeah, Patterns, again, gets an A from me. Good stuff. Watch out for a young Elizabeth Montgomery, who we might know as, what's her name from Bewitched, the main witch from Bewitched, Yeah, so good stuff. The third, No Time for Sergeants, broadcast on March 15th, 1955, 50 minutes. Directed by Alex Siegel, written for television by Ira Levin, based on the novel by Mac Hyman. The only comedy in this collection, and a good one too, starring the great Andy Griffith in the lead role. It was his first acting role, and the one that kind of catapulted him into stardom. He was a comedian, but this was his first acting gig, and it's the only one in front of a live audience because of the comedic effect. They felt that the story would work better in front of a live audience, and so because of that, that's why you hear a live audience, hear laughter throughout it. It's a little weird, but yeah, especially considering none of the others have laughter, obviously because they're all dramas. But it does make the story work a little bit better with laughter, so you know where to laugh. But yeah, again, it's a great story. It's really pretty funny stuff, and it's about this guy, Will Stockdale, who becomes a private in the army, and he and his friend, I think Ben Whitledge, are working together as privates, and Will Stockdale ends up, kind of becoming a thorn in Sergeant King, things side to the point where he tries to get him promoted so he can get him out of his rank. They need to, what do they call it? They need to classify him. And he ends up driving everybody bonkers with his southern way of thinking and speaking and all that. And it's that's all I'll say about it. It's a pretty hilarious thing. A lot of slapstick, but a lot of humor does come from Andy Griffith's, Stockdale's naivety and the way he just kind of misinterprets things, because of his education, his southern way of thinking. It's a great stuff, and I'm glad that Criterion added a comedy, in there. But I guess maybe it was one of the few comedies they could add because there weren't a lot of comedies done. I would like to see if there are any more other comedic plays. I'm sure there are more, but this was one of the earliest examples, I guess, of it. So again, No Time for Sergeants is great. I want to see, and I also want to see a lot of the movies of these. Almost all of these got movie, like big screen adaptations, I think with the exceptions of A Wind from the South and The Comedian, I think. Although I think The Comedian did too. But anyway, so yeah, I'd like to see all those, and maybe I'll talk about those in the near future. But yeah, No Time for Sergeants gets an A for me. Good stuff. All right, so that's disc 1. Disc 2 has 3 more. A Wind from the South, aired on September 14th, 1955, ran for 51 minutes. Directed by Daniel Petrie, written by James Costigan. And it stars Julie Harris as Siobhan and Donald Woods as Robert. And this is the only one the only weak one. If I give these all A's. This one I give an A minus. I kind of got bored with this one. It was a little more too melodramatic for me. It's very soap opera-ish. They describe it as very Irish. I don't really know what that means, but there you are. I think some of it is hearing Merv Griffin's song throughout the play. A soft day, thank God, a wind from the south. All that, having to hear that throughout the play, is getting a little tiresome for me. But anyway, it's about this young Irish woman who works for this married couple as a maid, and the husband ends up kind of falling for her, and she ends up trying to, and he wants her to, she lives with, I think his brother, her brother works with her, and she may end up traveling with him, but she also could stay with her brother, and so she's kind of falls for this guy as well, and so she has to make a decision as what she's doing, and I guess the title comes from the whole Robert is the wind from the south, So yeah, it's an interesting it was an interesting play. I did like just the idea of the whole married guy falls in love with the young woman girl, and the wife is like completely bullish and all that, and so it was entertaining. It was entertaining in places, but overall, I think the song was played a little too much, and the story in the end was a little too romantic. It was like, oh, what will I do? Just that's just my thing. But still, it's still a really good play in the end. That being said, I get A minus. Wind from the south. There you are. Next one, Bang the Drum Slowly. It aired on, let's still this one, live television, folks. Bang the Drum Slowly aired on September 26, 1956. Ran for 52 minutes. Directed, again, by Daniel Petrie. Adapted by Arnold Schulman from the book by Mark Harris. And it stars the great Paul Newman as the author, Henry Wiggin, and Albert Salmi as Bruce Pearson. And it's about, Henry Wiggin is this ball player who has a friend named Bruce Pearson who's on the team as well. And he is this, Bruce Pearson is a player who is, they call him, limited in intellect. He's very kind of, he might be, I would think that he might be a little autistic, but this was before autism was a thing really, that anyone talked about. So he's very much like, he asks a lot of questions. It's sort of like it's very much an of mice and men kind of relationship between Henry and Bruce. And so it's revealed that Bruce has a lethal disease. He only has a few months to live, and so Henry tries to get him tries to leave him the best life, even though everyone on the team ridicules him. And so Henry just really is kind of thrown into this place of knowing this secret. And the thing is, Bruce doesn't want anyone else to know about him. And Henry's kind of torn, and he has to make a decision as to what to do, because he knows that if he told people, he could, might be able to get help for him. At the same time, would they understand, And that's all I'll say about Bang the Drum Slowly. Again, a very good story with a tragic ending. Paul Newman's monologue at the end of the play kind of broke me a little bit, hearing him cry. It's good stuff. Bang the Drum Slowly is another fantastic play in this set. And again, A from me. So the last one on disc 2 is called Requiem for a Heavyweight. It's still disc 2, this one. It aired on October 11th, 1956. It was the first 90-minute play produced, although this runs for 73 minutes, but with commercials it's a little longer, of course. Directed by Ralph Nelson, and written especially for Playhouse 90 by Rod Serling, and produced by Marty Malulis and associate producer Julian Claman. So this play is about a washed-up heavyweight, a guy who was the heavyweight, and he loses a fight. His name's Harlan McClintock, or Mountain Man, as they call him, played by Jack Palance. And his coach, and then his trainer, Maish, played by Keenan Wynn, and there's also his cut man, played by Keenan's father, Edwin, the great comedian, Army. And the three of them, are the two, and Maish and Army. I think his name's Maish. I forget how to pronounce his name. Maish. I think Maish and Army are trying to, coax, they're trying to comfort McClintock after his fight. However, the doctor says that it's over for McClintock. He needs to hang it up. he can't do anymore. It's over. And so, McClintock doesn't want to accept this, but in the end, he realizes he has to. So Army takes him down to the unemployment office to try and get work. And while he's there, he ends up meeting Grace Carney, the unemployment woman, played by Kim Hunter. And she ends up feeling sorry for McClintock, and she tries to get him. She says that she'll do whatever she can to try to get him work. And especially when she realizes that he's a fighter, he hasn't had any work in the past. And he also suffers from a bit of brain damage due to his fights. And so there's that aspect as well. And so later on, she ends up visiting McClintock at a bar and wanting to know more about him. And she lets him know, that she might have a job for him working with children at a physical thing, a physical camp. Meanwhile, Maish owes the mafia money because he bet on Harlan to lose the fight or something, and or they bet on him to lose the fight, and he ended up thinking that he would win, but he ends up losing it, and so it's a different thing. So he owes him a lot of money, and at the end of the play, Harlan ends up finding out that Maish ends up that bet against Harlan, and he loses all faith with him, and ends up leaving wrestling altogether. Maish ends up getting him a gig doing professional wrestling, and so he ends up leaving right before the gig and going out on his own, and Maish is in trouble and all that. But Harlan still keeps in touch with Army and Grace and all that, and at the end he ends up accepting the job working with children. Now, one of the big details about this movie is Ed Wynn as Army. Ed Wynn, was one of the great comedians of the 40s and 50s, and a lot of people were nervous about putting him in front of the camera due to the fact that he, if he flubbed his line, they were worried that if he flubbed his line, he would fall back on his Ed Wynnisms, laughing, but he ended up performing perfectly, and his son Keenan was really nervous about putting his father in front of the screen, but Ed Wynn nailed it, and so it was the first dramatic role he ever did, and he did a couple more before his passing. And in fact, there was another play called The Man in the Funny Suit, which was all about Keenan preparing Ed for the role in Requiem for a Heavyweight, which I'd love to see because Keenan plays himself, Ed plays himself, Rod Serling's in it, and he plays himself. I would love to see that, and I need to look into finding that somewhere. Hopefully it still exists somewhere. But anyway, Requiem for a Heavyweight is a great story. It's definitely a lot of Rod Serlingisms in it. And again, great stuff. I loved it to death. And so anyway, good stuff gets an A from me. What can I say? I'm loving this set so much. But the last two plays we'll talk about. Two more 90-minute ones. The Comedian, aired on February 14th, 1957, 74 minutes. Good God, this was some strong shit. Directed by John Frankenheimer, written by Rod Serling for Playhouse 90, from a story by Ernest Lehman, again produced by Marty Manulis, starring Mickey Rooney as Sammy Hogarth, the Comedian. This is a extremely powerful drama, extremely intense drama about a comedian who wants everything to go his way and goes out of his way to, he's this hilarious guy on the screen, but behind the scenes, he's an evil, evil dude. And he ends up belittling everyone, especially his younger brother, Lester, played by Mel Torme, the crooner. And Lester's wife, Julie, wants him to stand up to him, and and he just, is just kind of under Sammy's thumb, because he's his brother. He doesn't really know how else to be, and there you are. It was a very, very just, God, Mickey Rooney just nailed it. It's pretty freaking crazy how he plays the role. And yeah, so anyway, I really, it's just, God, it was just like intense. It's like on the edge of your seat kind of humor. I mean, not humor, just edge of your seat drama. And I'm leaning forward because I need to test the microphone real quick. Okay, I turned it on and off. I hope you can hear me. You may need to turn up the volume. If for some reason this doesn't work and you're watching this, let me know as soon as possible, and I will try and re-record this before I turn in the DVDs, which may be tomorrow. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, one of the big things is that his monologue, or a lot of his material, his current material, this monologue, which involves him belittling his brother, Lester wants it taken out. When he fails to do so, his wife leaves him and ends up going to see Sammy after it's revealed that she almost had an affair with him after they got married. And so, yeah, and this other critic wants to destroy Sammy's reputation. And yeah, so at the end of this big broadcast, something happens that kind of changes the course of their career a little bit. I won't spoil the ending, but it's pretty intense. Let's just say Lester gets a bit of comeuppance. Again, a very sterling story. Mickey Rooney and Mel Torme play their parts amazingly. Kim Hunter is fantastic. Everyone just gets it, and Mickey Rooney is scary as fuck in this play. Yeah, that's all I can say. In ways, I think the Comedian may be my favorite 90-minute play of the 90-minuters. But yeah, so anyway, let's get to the last one because it's pretty late and I need to get to bed. So it's 3:00 as it is now, and I need to go to bed. So final one, Days of Wine and Roses, produced on October 2nd, 1958, ran for 80 minutes. And yeah, so anyway, let's see. Directed by John Frankenheimer, produced by Fred Coe, written especially for Playhouse 90 by J.P. Miller. And it stars Joe Clay as Cliff Robertson as Joe Clay, and Piper Laurie as his wife, Kristen. And the two of them, and it's a very, very powerful drama about alcoholism. The two of them are alcoholics. Joe is, the majority of the story is told in flashback from Joe's point of view at an AA meeting. He tells the story of how he met Kristen and how he met them at a party. And they met over, their mutual love of drink. And at first it's very quiet, and they end up getting married. And they have a baby. And Joe, working late hours, he ends up getting drunk and coming home and bringing alcoholism to the home. And at first, Kristen isn't for it. However, she ends up falling back into alcoholism's trap and neglecting their baby. and the two of them end up, like running out of money, and the baby ends up their daughter ends up going to live with her grandfather, Kristen's dad, and the two of them end up losing all their money, and he ends up losing his job. Joe ends up losing his job. At one point, Kristen haggles with the landlady to sell this really nice set of encyclopedia she had. It gets to the point where they end up losing their apartment, or they end up having to move in with her dad, and because they can't be trusted on their own. And it seems okay. However, Joe ends up sneaking alcohol, whiskey into the apartment, and they end up getting drunk, and Joe can't help him, and Joe ends up finally realizing that he needs help. And so he goes to see to an AA meeting, and he gets himself clean. Kristen, on the other hand, will not go. She doesn't believe she has a problem, and he tries to get her to go. And at one point, he ends up falling back into the trap. She ends up convincing him to drink again, and he does. And it's only after he ends up getting committed to a psych ward too. And that's the detail I forget, because that's probably the scariest part. I've actually seen the big screen version with Jack Lemmon, and that scene scared the shit out of me. I don't drink, but that scene was probably the scariest and saddest part of the movie, is when you're so low that you have to be confined. Your body has to be confined because you cannot be on your own. You have to be in a padded room and all that. So Joe gets himself clean, but he ends up going back into the hospital after Kristen traps him. Kristen ends up running away, and Joe's released, and Kristen comes back to him, or he ends up finding Kristen, and I guess she's too far gone and all that. But at one point, she ends up getting herself clean. Joe gets the baby back, his daughter back. Kristen comes to visit him, and she tells him that she hasn't had a drink in 2 days, and she's trying to get back into their lives, and Joe can't do it. Not immediately, not right away, because she has to basically earn his trust back. Kristen sadly understands and turns away and heads to the door, and that's basically the play. A very, very sad play, and one that I think still rings true to this day. I think there's a lot of people that could learn, about alcoholism from this story. So again, a great, great way, and a very sad way to end this set. Overall, this is one of the greatest Criterion things I've ever seen. This was one of the top 5, definitely in the top 5. It might be number 1. I don't know. Right now, it's a close call between this and Death of a Cyclist for the top 28. I'm not sure. I have to rank. I have to do some serious ranking right now. I might have my top 28, although I've got 4 more movies to watch. So we shall see. We'll see what that entails. But right now, again, I am a huge fan of old time TV, and I love these live telecasts. And I'm just pleased as punch that this has exceeded my expectations tenfold. I love this set, and I cannot wait to own it. So that's all I have to say. Let's wrap this up. Golden Age of Television gets a resounding A from me. I don't think I could rank them. I would say, if I could rank them, I would say probably my favorite is probably The Comedian. I love the comedian. If I rank them, comedian, Marty, let's say comedian, Marty, um, No Time for Sergeants, Requiem for a Heavyweight, Days of Wine and Roses, Patterns, Bang the Drum Slowly, and A Wind from the South. That's just off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean they're all amazing. Again, I cannot speak highly enough. Get this amazing stuff. Supplements. There aren't really any supplements. There's the introductions to each one, edited from the 1980s broadcasts. Outside of that, there are also two further excerpts of interviews with John Frankenheim, featured in the Comedian and Days of Wine and Roses sections. And there's a few bits. There's also some commentary on a few of the plays as well. And yeah, so that's it. That's all I've got for you today. Golden Age of Comedy, an amazing set. Please get this. This will change. This will blow your mind. And yeah, that's all I have to say. I really hope this broadcast went through. I saw we had one viewer for a second, but there you go. So anyway, that's it for me today or tonight. Later on, probably Saturday, July 7th, we will get to Shay. We'll get to this one next. And then next weekend, or later on this weekend, we will get to the Chantal Ackerman in the 70s set. And then I put a hold on the Roberto Rossellini War Trilogy. That'll be coming up soon. And yeah, so and then we'll be done. And then rank them, and then we're done. And also I've made a few other purchases in the Barnes & Noble sale. I don't have time to review them or show them off now, but come this Saturday for the Shay review, I will be showcasing off my next couple purchases. And I got some good ones, guys, and I hope you're ready for this. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Don't turn away. Don't be mean to your friends if they're looking for love. Don't think that the youngest guy, upstarter, can replace the old hand. Don't be mean to the privates who may not be as well equipped for the job as others. Don't fall in love with the Irish maid you hired. Don't be mean to, don't rag on the fellow athlete who may not be as well equipped in the mental processes as you are. Don't give up on your dreams even when your manager has given up on yours. Don't be afraid to stand up to the little man, and don't drink. That's one of the moral for each one. So, and that's all I can say. I hope this worked out. Again, please let me know if this didn't work out, because I will try and film a review, just and upload it as normal in the near future if I can. Once I get the normal set. If this doesn't work out, I may have to reshoot it and do it later on when I get my own copy, because I have put this on order. So I'll do another review and I'll re-review it, and so I may end up going out of order. We'll see how this works. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you all later this weekend for Shay. And until then, good night, and this ends our broadcast.